والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Glory be to Allah, all praise to Allah. There is no God but Allah. Allah is great.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh. And welcome to another episode in True Peace, The Secret of Life, where we look at the world's fastest growing religion and most sustainable belief system in the entire universe. Yes, the entire universe, not just the entire world. Because Islam is not just a religion that is bound to this planet, but to the whole of creation. Everything in the world is in practice of submission to Allah. Everything that has been created is in a state of submission. Even as human beings, we have the opportunity to make a choice between who we want to submit to. We're all in a state of submission. Some of us are in a state of submission to ourselves. Some of us are in a state of submission to shaitan. Some of us are in a state of submission to a false god. And some of us, unfortunate ones, are in submission to Allah, to the one true God. Last time we were looking at the soul. What is this soul that we have been given? And how does the soul get nourishment? And how does the soul go into error? And we're looking at how people have gone into error by not nourishing their soul. The main conditions for going into error for the soul, or going into error spiritually, is because people start to believe things that are not really true about Islam. For example, getting into clairvoyancy, magic, putting on charms, observing just the outward appearance of Islam, thinking that they can learn about Islam in isolation. No, you need the one-on-one contact if you want to learn about Islam. There's nothing better. In fact, it's sunnah that you learn your Islam from one another, that you don't just learn it from a book. Yes, you can learn from books. Yes, you can do the online classes. But you still need to sit with someone who is a scholar of knowledge and learn from them. One of the beautiful opportunities that we have in my country is that we have so many scholars. There's a scholar on every corner. We maybe have too many scholars in my country, and maybe we need to send some of them out to other countries in the world. But people are not utilizing these scholars. So you cannot learn Islam in isolation. You have to learn, if you want to gain knowledge, that Islam is not something that is going to be done only with one certain group of people. You need to gain as much knowledge as you can from all different groups of people. And this is the other reason why we find often people get into spiritual error, or they start to learn things that are not part of Islam, is when they start to classify themselves under names. And they think that is far more important than calling themselves Muslims. And that's when you find them going into error. So be very, very careful of that as well. We also find that people get into error, we spoke about last week, is when people start to forget about the way they appear, the way they dress. They start breaking the rules of Islam. You start seeing people dressing in all sorts of things that are actually against the dress code and the way that we are supposed to be as Muslims. And they start to become artificial in the way they speak, in the way they behave. There is nothing worse than somebody being fake. You can see when somebody's being fake. Their body language tells you that they're being fake. When somebody is being genuine and real, you can see it. So don't be artificial in the way you talk. Don't be artificial in the way you act. People will see through you. And how long are you going to be able to keep that act up anyway? They'll eventually be able to see through that disguise. Another reason that people go into spiritual error or into error of knowledge is when they become self-fulfilled in what they think they are doing, the deeds they're doing. They think, well, look how great I am. They do everything so everyone can see what they're doing. Every time they do a lecture or a talk, or every time they do a kind activity for the poor or the sick or the needy, they put their banner up everywhere. You've seen those guys that come along, every time they go anywhere, up comes the banner. Instead of just doing it for the sake of Allah. You know, I'd rather be remembered as that white guy than being remembered as Areeb Islam. It's the deed that is far more important than who you are as a name. Remember, you're doing it for the sake of Allah. Sometimes it's just do it for the sake of doing it. Don't worry about bringing banners and posters and putting up your name everywhere. Do it for the sake of Allah. So be very, very cautious. This is one of the ways that we can protect ourselves from being spiritually ill or moving towards error. Some other ways that we can see people going into error is when they become show-offs in spirituality. You know, you've heard the story about the man who everyone's watching him performing his salah, and they see how he goes into ruku and everything, and look how beautiful he's doing it. He's doing everything so crisp and perfect. And he comes up, he hears everyone talking, and he does all his actions perfectly. And he's so proud of the way he's doing it. And on the way out, he walks past the people and he said, and I'm fasting too. You see, some people are like that. You know, they want to show off. And then they must make sure that everybody knows what else they're doing as well. This is not for the sake of anybody. If you do the best you can do for the sake of Allah, only one that you want to please is Allah. When you're performing your salah, do it for the sake of Allah. Ignore everybody else that's there. You concentrate on what you're supposed to be doing. Allah, in His wisdom and in His might and in His power, will change that person, inshallah. If that person has a desire for truth, the truth will come to that person and he will find out. You need to concentrate on yourself. How do we fulfill the desires of your heart and the desires of your soul? Remember that having your brain filled with knowledge is not good enough. You need to let that knowledge fall from the brain to the heart. It's no use just being in your head. It needs to go to your heart. Sometimes people just have it in their heart and they have nothing in their head. So the order needs to be correct. You gain knowledge, and then the knowledge will make you live differently in the way that we live our lives. So we call it going into your heart, but it doesn't really sit in your heart. It's the way it affects our lives. Like the heart pumps blood throughout our body and oxygen throughout our body. Once that knowledge goes into every fiber of our being, every little muscle, every little group in our bodies, whether it be the group of fingers or the group of feet or the ankle bones or whatever it might be, everything works together from what the mind has learned in total submission to Allah. So how do we fulfill the desires of your heart and your soul? Well, the first way to do that, the first way to accomplish this in your life is to follow the pillars of Islam. Once you understand and follow the pillars of Islam, you'll find that the desires of your heart and soul are fulfilled. When you make zikr, when you call out to Allah and you speak to Allah, when you cry out and you recite the Quran, and that's the third thing, when you read the Quran, when you study the Quran, when you recite the Quran, when you learn it, when you apply it to your life. Don't just learn the entire Quran off by heart and not know how to apply a single ayah into your life. As you learn to apply it. As you learn something new from the Quran and read something new, apply it into your life. These three things will make a success of your heart and your soul and fulfill the desires of your heart and your soul. And inshallah, this is what we're going to be looking at in this program today. The 5 pillars of Islam, we all know it. We've all heard it so many times. But how many of us have actually realized how we need to apply this into our own souls? It's not the message for the man next door. It's not the message for your colleague or the friend at school or for the person that you've been speaking to on Twitter or Facebook. It's for you to apply in your own life first. So apply these not once in your life, but every single day of your life. The 5 pillars of Islam need to be taken seriously every single day of your life to be successful. The recipe for success in your spiritual growth and to remain a good Muslim is when you wake up in the morning, go wash your face, get yourself ready, and look in the mirror and say to yourself, what are the 5 pillars of Islam that I'm going to apply to my life today? Today I start afresh, all the way again from the beginning. And the first thing I do in the morning, perform our salah. Allah, make me regular with my salah. Help me to remember my salah. Help me to fulfill the requirements that I as a Muslim am supposed to do. Remember that the money that you're making is not yours. It's been given to you as a loan. Allah has given it to you as a loan. You owe that zakat. You must give out that zakat, cleanse your money. And then when you have cleansed your money, to make sure that you are doing sawam. And then, of course, if you have the means and you have the ability to go on Hajj. This is something that all of us, sometimes we put that right at the back of the list and we forget about it totally. Obviously, If you don't have the means, you are unable to go on Hajj. However, if you have the ability, if you have the means, then you need to start putting a little fund aside and making sure that you get ready for putting money aside for a Hajj or going on a Hajj. Now, why do I say that a Hajj is so important? Hajj is important because everything that you know about the pillars of Islam is theoretical. To a certain extent, it's practical. But once you go on Hajj, you understand your Shahada properly. You understand why you are performing your Salah. You understand why Zakat is so important. Everything comes together. All the theory, all the things that you are practicing become real when you go on Hajj. You start to see it in 3 dimensions. It's no longer just in paper, in theory, the thing that you are doing. You understand everything so much clearer once you've gone on Hajj. So make a concerted effort to go on Hajj when it's possible. So Islam is based on these 5 things. And when we declare that there is no other God other than God, and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, when we establish prayer, when we pay our zakat, when we go on Hajj, and we fast during the month of Ramadan, then we're actually living the life of a Muslim. If we do 4 out of the 5, we are not living as a Muslim, and then we cannot claim to be a Muslim except for the Hajj. If you don't have the means to go on Hajj, that's separate. But if you do have the means and you haven't gone, then you have not fulfilled the requirements of a Muslim. If you have the means, you have the time, you have the ability, and you just don't want to go because everybody's told you how difficult it's going to be, you have not fulfilled the requirements of being a Muslim. You need to go on Hajj. You can't keep saying, I would love to go on Hajj, but you must go. And don't believe the nonsense that people are saying that, oh, it's going to be so difficult. It is actually very, very easy to do. Well, it's time for us to take a break, but when we get back from the break, we will continue with the section on faith, inshallah.
All praise to Allah.
An evil is approaching. A gap has appeared in the barrier of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, like this. This is part of a hadith that was spoken over 1400 years ago. And if it was near then, imagine how near it is now. My name is Muhammad Tim Humble, and in this series we explore the hadith of Sahih Muslim that speak of the trials and tribulations that are to come in the end of days.
Know and understand the signs of the final day to increase your taqwa and protect your iman in End of Days. Next on Peace TV.
All praise to Allah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back. We are talking on how you can be a successful Muslim in today's society, how you can find true peace. So many people in the world are looking for peace. And we've been looking at the dangers that people can go into when they go into error, how to fix those mistakes when people go into error. And we spoke about the 5 pillars of Islam, how we need to apply that into our day-to-day life. Now we're talking about belief or faith or having sureness in life. And the requirement to having sureness, the requirement to having faith in life comprises of the fact that we have to be monotheists first and foremost. You cannot claim to have belief or sureness in life, to have the secret to success, if you are not a monotheist. If you are sitting at home and you say, well, I like a lot about Islam. I like the idea they pray 5 times a day. I like the fact that they give zakat. I like the fact that they go on Hajj. I like the fact that they do this, that, and the other. But I want to be a Trinitarian. I still want to believe in the Trinity. Unfortunately, your faith is null and void. It's worth nothing. The requirements for faith is that you are a strict monotheist. Remember we spoke in the very, very first program about what monotheism is? Monotheism is to believe in Allah, that He is not part of His creation, that He's not in His creation, that He does not live inside an object, that He does not have His energy inside an idol or an object. No, He's above the 7 heavens. He's above His creation. That we believe, to be a strict monotheist, that you have to believe that everything has been preordained, that everything has been predetermined. Remember we said in the first episode in the series that we have a linear existence. Means it has a beginning and it has an end, a linear existence. Allah is not limited to a linear existence. He is not limited to time. He's not limited to space. He's not limited to a shape or a form. He is not limited to anything that we as human beings understand. He is greater than that. Even though we understand that Allah has a form which is described in the Quran, that He reaches out, He has hands, it's not the same as we are physically that shape. It's very different. And inshallah, these are the things that you need to understand to be a strict monotheist. These are requirements of faith. That you have to believe in the prophethood, that you have to believe in angels, that you have to believe in the books that were sent, that all the messengers that were sent by Allah had the same message, that you have to believe in life after death. And of course, if you believe in life after death, that there will be a day of reckoning, a day of accounting, a day of judgment, a day of a telling of all that you have done. Telling as in counting, not as in telling, even though that will happen as well. And the effect of true faith on the soul, if you apply these things, is that the soul will believe that there is no other God worthy of worship other than Allah, and He will submit. The soul will on its own submit to the belief in one Almighty God. Will have no doubts. It will not waver. It will not go up and down and change its ideas. You know, some people, they're hot and cold. One day they believe, one day they don't. One day they're sure, one day they're not. If you have got these issues in place, the effects of true faith on the soul will believe, you will have a firm belief in the one Almighty. Nothing will be able to make you waver. It will remove all false gods from your life. There are many false gods that we have. We have gods in our lives that shouldn't be there. Even though we claim to be Muslims, we have these false gods. Some of these false gods are our job or our career or even our own arrogance or ego. We have to be very careful. We'll become a well-adjusted, well-rounded person if we follow these strict requirements as given to us in the Quran. We are strict monotheists. We believe in the prophets and we believe in the hereafter. The benefits on your soul will be that you'll be a well-adjusted, well-rounded person. Then the third aspect to becoming successful in life, we're looking at this section, is prayer, salah. Salah, prayer are very, very important. The consequences of performing your prayer are extremely important for you to understand. If we have belief and we pray, our prayers that we make will be life-changing. They will absorb into every avenue of our lives. They'll become the central point of our life. It will be the beginning and end all of everything in our life. It's not just the salah that we're doing 5 times a day, but the prayer that we make as we walk, as we talk, as we sit, when we greet each other, when we leave each other's homes, when we enter and exit different rooms. This is what we have to do in our lives. We have to allow belief and prayer to absorb every avenue of our lives. We cannot be in disbelief. The difference between belief and disbelief, in the middle of belief and disbelief lies something called prayer. The only thing that prevents us from going into disbelief is prayer. Prayer will lead us into belief. Stopping praying will lead us into disbelief. It is that easy to understand. What happens when people start moving away from Allah? The first thing to go is they stop going to mosque. The second thing is they stop reading the Quran. The third thing is they no longer pray. The fourth thing is they stop fasting during the month of Ramadan. And the fifth thing is they move away from the Muslim community altogether. This is how you fail. The first thing to come back into your life if you want to have success is prayer. So the difference between belief and disbelief is if you pray or not. You stop praying, you go into disbelief. You pray, you go back into belief. You perform your salah on time, you go into belief. You stop praying, you go into disbelief. It is simple as that. So as the body requires breath and a heart to make the blood and the oxygen circulate around the body, so does your soul require prayer. Your soul requires you to pray just like your body requires your heart or your lungs to breathe in exactly the same way. So we have to make sure that we as Muslims do not give up prayer. It's the first thing that shaitan is going to attack in your life. It's the first thing he's going to try to make you compromise on. He's going to say, come on now, really, think about this. You don't really need to pray 5 times a day. Isn't the essence of your prayer more important than the number of times you pray? Don't worry about it. Pray twice a day, it's enough. Even once, it's enough. You don't need to pray 5 times. Anyway, when you're walking, you're praying anyway. You don't really need to go perform your salah. These are the whispers of shaitan. He'll come to you and he'll whisper lies into you. And you'll go, but you're giving zakat, and you went on Hajj, and you're fasting in the month of Ramadan. Do you really need to pray 5 times a day? This is what he does for a living. He's been around for thousands and thousands, maybe even millions of years, we do not know. So he is the master of telling you nonsense. We've been around for 30 years, 40 years, 20 years, 16 years. He's had a lot more practice at this than you have. So let's rather listen to what Allah says. Don't listen to shaitan. The wages of prayer is belief. The wages of not praying is disbelief. Now, how do you get to become a regular person who enjoys prayer? The best way for you to enjoy your prayer time, to enjoy doing your salah, to enjoy doing your own prayers at home, as you walk, as you talk, as you meet, as you greet, is to be genuine with it. You have to connect with your Creator. It's no good saying, I am praying and I believe in praying, and you don't believe it. You have to first and foremost believe what you're saying. If you don't believe it, it's just words and it's not going to be accepted from you. Please, please, really think about what you're doing. If you start praying properly and you pray with belief and you pray with understanding, you will gain super powerful, super strength. You'll become a superman. You'll become a person who's gained true spiritual strength. You'll become the guy that everybody wants to be like. You can see the guy who really prays genuinely. Everybody wants to be like him. But if you don't, you'll become the guy who gets sand kicked in his face, the one that everybody bullies, spiritually speaking. So you want to be super strong. The wages of prayer is that if you put the input in, you will gain spiritual strength, and the output is that you'll be able to fight against all the temptations that are sent your way. You will not become one of those people who speaks in a vulgar manner. You will not be one of those people when court of God swears. You'll be not one of those people when court of God is doing haram things, or their eyes start to wander and look at things that they're not supposed to be looking at. So the wages of prayer are success. If you only but submit to Allah, give yourself over to Allah, and the result of praying in the soul is amazing. You become closer to Allah. You are endlessly reminded of the mercies of Allah. You have a renewed agreement with Allah all the time that you are a Muslim. You have the opportunity to seek out Allah's protection by saying, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. You develop gratitude and thankfulness to Allah, and you become a better servant from humanity. You find meaning and clearness and purpose in this life, and a purity that you cannot find in any other way that you've tried to live your life before. You restrain yourself from doing things that you know are damaging to society or yourself. And you bring and build up in your community and in your family a much better society and a much better community, and you become a more pious person. Now, we also find that when you do all these things, that you will want to do the next step. And that's what we're going to be dealing with next week, inshallah. We're going to be looking at zakat. That's the next step to help you to find true peace and true commitment to Islam, how to find that peace that passes all understanding. Today, I would like to leave you with this thought, and that is that you have the opportunity to restart your commitment with Islam today. Perhaps you haven't been the greatest Muslim. Perhaps you have just reverted to Islam, and there's so many things that are confusing you. People are telling you one thing, people online are telling you another thing, your Christian friends are telling you one thing. Don't listen to anybody. Stop listening and start listening to Allah. Speak to Allah. Raise your hands today and ask Allah to guide you, and stay on the straight path. Don't let people distract you. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Inshallah, we'll meet again, same place. So from me, Areeb Islam, until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر